Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our session. Today we're going to be talking about streamlining SAP master data processes using automation. And specifically, we're going to be showing you this through some real-world examples and case studies from some of the best-known companies in the world, like Johnson & Johnson and Home Depot. I'm Andrew Hayden. I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager for the Automate products here at Precisely, and I will be your host today. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, before we dive into the individual customer stories, we're going to walk through a couple of just topic areas to set the scene. One of them is digital transformation and data integrity. We're all involved heavily in digital transformation these days, especially if we're going through an SAP modernization, and data integrity has become a really big part of that whole process. So we're going to walk through that. I'm going to talk a little bit about complexity in SAP master data and why those two things can often, or why complexity in your SAP master data processes can often be a barrier to you being able to accomplish a lot of the goals you've got. Then we're going to dive into the customer stories. So we're going to hear from a number of different companies about how they're using automation to really improve and streamline their SAP master data processes. So HP Hood, Johnson & Johnson, Pactiv, Home Depot, and the South Florida Water District are going to show you really great examples of how they are looking at automation as a way to really improve their overall business and their overall business results. So let's get started. So digital transformation and data integrity, it's one of those things. It feels like digital transformation is something that we are always doing. And it's true. I mean, there's no end state for digital transformation. We're always going to be doing it. But especially if you're in the SAP world, a lot of what we're seeing in terms of digital transformation is being driven by our move from ECC to S/4HANA. And as we go through that process, as we work our way, from one to the other, we're also starting to see a lot of companies really focus a lot on the data because they're looking at how much data do we have to move, how much data do we have to clean up, what is the overall integrity of that data that we are putting into our new S/4HANA system and into our HANA database. So we're going to talk a lot about kind of why that's important today. And I think you're going to hear, especially from a lot of these companies, not so much about that migration process, but if you just think about your SAP processes overall, you're going to hear about what automation can do to help both the data and the processes as you work through and look at your business from a really more of a macro standpoint. And one of the things that we know is throughout this entire thing, there is a common set of customer needs. We at Precisely have been automating SAP processes for over 20 years. This goes back to our days as Windshuttle. So you'll hear a couple of these companies mention Windshuttle, and that is us as well. But these three customer needs have always been present. One is this need to be more agile. Traditionally, agility was all about competitive advantage. How do we go to market faster than our competitors? How do we pivot and move and change as things happen in the marketplace? And as we saw when the pandemic hit, agility became about more than just competitive advantage. It now became about how do we address disruption in the marketplace? How do we change our business model overnight because suddenly we no longer have people in the office, or we have suppliers who are no longer in their offices and able to do things? So agility has become really a way to look at how do we respond to disruption. And automation is a really great way to address those agility needs. At the same time, we always need to go faster. There is a constant acceleration to the speed of business. And it's really interesting because as we've seen business accelerate over time, one of the things we've seen recently is we've kind of gotten to an inflection point where we can't throw bodies at a problem anymore. For everyone who is in a shared service center and kind of understands this traditional way of, we need to make something go faster, let's throw more people into this process. Well, our need for collecting data, for managing data, for the processes and the complex processes that we have to go through to collect that data and manage that data and really run our businesses has outstripped the ability to just throw human bodies at it. Now we're looking at ways to supplement and augment the current people we have. How do we make our current teams more efficient, more productive? And automation is a really great way to do that. And at the same time, this eternal customer need that has become more prevalent lately is also to improve our data integrity. So the quality and integrity of the data that we have in our SAP system and in our other systems has become absolutely imperative because we're running our businesses based on that data. Now, one of the things we also can't overlook is this interdependence of process and data. We often spend a lot of time, and I've spent a lot of time talking to CDOs and people from the office of CDO about their data. And one of the things you hear often is that, and I heard this last year from one when I was talking to him. I said, "So tell me, what's your biggest struggle?" He goes, "My data's a mess." And part of the reason that data was a mess is because of the processes that they were using to create and manage that data. So you can't overlook this interdependence of the two. And we've also often seen customers and companies look to do process improvement initiatives. And the problem is they're not considering the data that process is creating. And if they've got a process that's creating bad data and you improve it, now you're just creating a lot of bad data very quickly. Same thing on the data side. If you're doing data quality initiatives with data in situ, whether it's in a database somewhere, data lake, data warehouse, whatever, if you're not looking at the processes that are creating and managing that data and that are delivering bad data into those, you're only seeing half the picture. So this interdependence of process and data is another one of those areas where automation can look at it and really help you address both of those issues at the same time. So with all of that in mind, then we have this other factor of complexity. And when we think about the data journey, what does that data go through? How do you get from point A, from the time you're generating that data, all the way to the point where you're actually going to use that data, or you're going to analyze and activate it? Now, at Precisely, we look at this data journey as a bit of a subway map. If you think about it, there's different stops along that subway you can get on, and you can get off at different places. But I like to think of it as automation is kind of the train between those, in many cases, especially around your SAP processes. So in that generate phase, automation is a really great way to eliminate a lot of the challenges you have for generating your data, for creating your master data records, and so forth. Automation can help you integrate when you've got to be able to coordinate data between SAP and other systems. When it comes to cataloging and governing and cleansing that data. Now, automation often doesn't do those things for you, but it can deliver the data to where it needs to go. Or, if you need to extract data out of SAP to cleanse it with something like our Data 360 Analyze product, you can do that through our Studio product. I'll talk about some of these in a few minutes. You can extract the data out of SAP, cleanse it, and then repost it back into SAP very, very simply. So there's ways to be able to do that when you make that stop. Enriching the data in terms of making sure that your addresses are correct, that you've got all of the geolocation information you need and the other information you need within that data record, that it's all there. So you're going to enrich it to the point where that data is at the stage where you need it to be in order to analyze and activate it. And you're going to want to monitor that data and understand what's happening across your data processes. How do you, what's the auditability? What's the governance that's happening? Those various things, so that you can activate and analyze that data. So this journey itself is very complex. But when we get into individual master data records, we've done research over the past couple of years with ASUG, so the American SAP User Group. And we've been able to kind of break down this complexity into these three areas. One is the complexity of the data itself. If you think about a master data record, there are just hundreds and hundreds of data elements and data objects within an individual master data record. So materials, for example, on average has about 300 elements in it. When you're managing that manually, when you're creating that data manually, you have introduced a massive opportunity for error just at the data level. So in order to help mitigate a lot of this, SAP gives us very prescribed processes. And there's processes you have to go through. And if you're dealing in the SAP GUI or if you're dealing in Fiori, often these processes can be very complex in and of themselves. You've got lots of different screens, you've got lots of different tabs, different places where data has to be entered and guardrails around those. But when it comes to complex data-intensive processes around creating master data records and so forth, often you're dealing with lots of people throughout your organization. So you now have organizational complexity on top of this. You have different departments that have different cadences and different priorities and different needs. So all of these three things add complexity or sort of multiply complexity on top of one another as you go through creating a master data record or managing a master data record. So this multidimensionality of complexity is one of those other areas where well-designed automation solutions can really help you mitigate and eliminate and simplify a lot of this complexity. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The Precisely Automate portfolio You're going to hear this referred to by the companies as we go through this. It consists of these three products. It's Studio, which is a desktop software, a desktop automation software that really is the premier Excel to SAP interface and interaction. So what it allows people to do is it allows people to work in Excel and simplify all of that complexity in terms of how the data is created and managed. And you can validate it within that Excel file and then automatically post it to SAP from that Excel file. So the Excel file becomes that interface for SAP. And it's really good for like mass data processes. If you're doing condition changes, things like that on tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of records, Studio is a really great way to do that. Studio Manager gives you some additional server-side capabilities. So you can schedule Studio jobs, you can manage licenses, you can manage the scripts much more easily. And then Evolve is our full workflow platform for those complex data-intensive processes that require interaction with people across your entire organization. All right, so we're going to start off with HP Hood, and they're a very large dairy here in the United States. And they give a really good kind of introduction to what automation can do and how they're using automation to help manage things like change management and deal with those complex business processes that they're really challenged with so much.
I'm James Starbuck. I'm the Director of Enterprise Data Governance for HP Hood. Our daily work at HP Hood, of course, we have our day-to-day processing we do. So we ensure that things that come into our queue for processing, that they're processed within our SLAs that we have set within Evolve to make sure that we're meeting our SLAs on a regular basis. But we're also involved in other projects that we've got going on in the company. So a lot of project meetings. So we have to balance that between projects and day-to-day business processing that we need to do. Challenges that we've had at HP Hood with our adoption into Evolve was, one, the total change management, especially with our business users. They're very used to, this is the way we've always done it. Why do we have to do it this way? And we overcome that by explaining to them the advantages that, one, you'll be able to see everything you've submitted, whereas via email, you could never see that before. Other challenges we've had is, very complex processes. I mean, SAP is a data hog, and there's very complex processes to do the data. So a lot of times you have to build certain parts of the data with SAP. You have to back out, go into it either with the same transaction or a different transaction to do the next step. So there's multiple steps to build a customer, to build a vendor, to build a material master. With Evolve, we were able to bring all those steps into one single solution, going from old legacy where they would take up to a week to create a new customer. Now with Evolve, it can be done in less than a day, long as it's gone through the workflow and the approvals are all done in a timely manner. We have a Fiori first mindset. So all of our business users are only on Fiori. Our functional team and the master data teams, they do work in the GUI, but our business users are purely only Fiori, and we do have business use cases to automate Fiori, especially for commodity codes for Material Master. So we were one of the beta testers for Automate Fiori, and I can definitely say it worked really great when we were beta testing it. So looking forward to it going live now to where we'll be able to roll out our commodity code solution. Our roadmap for Automate over the next few years is to bring more automation into our processes, do more parent-child functionality, where we can have solutions to where Automate is just automatically kicking off solutions. We've already got one in place. We do plan for more. We also plan to do more integration. We have new solutions going into place that we have use cases to where we would need to integrate to Evolve. So that way the end user is working in one system and not having to go out of that system, go to Automate to fill out the governance form to submit for the data request, where it just feeds into Evolve, automatically kick it off. So we've got a few use cases for that we're going to be working on.
So hopefully that gave you a better idea, kind of just at a high level, of where automation can affect your organization and how it can help improve your business processes. But now let's dig a little bit deeper, and let's think about manual data processes and mass data management and some of the challenges that it can provide or it can present your organization. Johnson & Johnson Vision is a really great example of somebody who's dealt with a lot of these mass data processes for things like pricing and condition changes. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let the Johnson & Johnson Vision team talk you through how they use automation to really improve their overall business and their overall business results.
Hi, my name is Tina Stewart and I work at Johnson & Johnson Vision. I had a challenge where we had several invoices that were airing out of our system, and it would take about 8 hours to process these manually. And I was able to develop a script that allowed me to complete those in a matter of minutes versus hours. We also learned from that we were able to do some updates to our customer master with as far as their category, subcategory, and that affects, instead of manual entry, the script allowed it to be done much faster.
I'm Tijuana Davis. I work for Johnson & Johnson Vision. I'm a business process expert. We do a lot of pricing updates for customers, and it has to refer back to things that are in Customer Master. Before, we were manually inputting price for our customers. We have so many different price levels for each customer. So even though there may be just one list price, everyone gets a different discount. So you have to manually put in all of the discounts for all customers. So with having Precisely, it just helps to navigate the pricing structure, and it makes it easier to go and input all of those pricings when before it took maybe 2 weeks. Now it takes maybe just a day or a couple of days. We're able to do other projects for customers because, like I said, all of our customers have different needs and different expectations. So we're able to streamline things in SAP, even with our customer service representatives, to help them key orders and look at the pricing for customers and do a lot more training to help the customer and help the customer service representative be a one-stop shop.
My name is Durga Sharma. I work for Johnson & Johnson Vision, in charge of the team that handles order management, customer master, the pricing, eligibility, and really supporting order-to-cash functions primarily in SAP. We've got pretty complex processes from pricing, from eligibility, from the order management as well, with different pricing and different shipping conditions for different customers. With Precisely, one of the examples I can think of is, we have different customers sending EDI orders. They're large orders, so it takes a lot of time to go into the order, manually fix it, and then update the ship conditions and save, and then go to the next order. So with the help of Precisely Automate, we're able to script that now, and somebody can run that behind the scenes without really manually doing all the transactions. It saved the team daily, many hours per day, and the team is thrilled, and we're absolutely thrilled as well. I think the next step for us is getting involved with Evolve, automating some of our complex processes, especially with our customer master intake process, can really leverage cleanliness of master data, the accuracy of it, and really, instead of doing it manually, right, have the system vet the data and upload it for us. I think that's our next step, and we're excited about the product that you guys have rolled out.
So another area that we hear about is eliminating manual data management, especially in SAP. If you're managing data manually, often we see people managing this in Excel files. And this is where Studio comes in and can be really important. And a really great example of that is a company named Dorman. So Dorman is a manufacturer of automotive parts. They do it for both OEM and aftermarket. And they had a seemingly simple problem that they had to solve. And this was to take a subset of their materials and list them from manufactured to kitted. Now, this was going to affect things like bills of materials and routings and some of their sales orders, and needed to be reflected there. And traditionally, they had managed these things manually. Simple change, right? No. They estimated to do this manually per 100 materials. It was going to take about 60 hours. And because of that, they were going to have to hire people to do it. They were going to have to train them, and it was going to cost about $4,500. That's per 100 materials. They had thousands of these. Tens of thousands of these materials that needed to be changed. And so they were happening as they went through. And what they found was with Studio, they could automate that process. And so with Studio, that same 100 materials and instead of taking 60 hours, it now takes 5. Instead of costing $4,500, it costs less than $400. So you can imagine the savings they saw. They could now do this with their existing team. They didn't have to go out and hire new people. There was no business disruption. In the first quarter of implementation, they figured they saved about $125,000. And so on an annualized basis, they're saving $500,000 just with this one single simple process, just by automating it using Studio, using a desktop automation product. Now, how many of those single, simple processes do you have across your organization? So it's a really good example of what you can do just with desktop automation. Home Depot is another great example of a company that's using the Automate platform to really drive a lot of efficiencies across their business, especially at that business user level. So I'll turn it over to them and let them tell you their story.
My name is Brian Garrett, and I'm a senior RPA developer on the Checks team.
And I'm James Donegan. I'm a senior manager of our Change Excellence or Checks team. So we've actually been Precisely customers since 2008, I believe is when we first started. And so we had recently implemented SAP, had started with our P2P space, and we were trying to get very strict with our teams to really manage our costs. And so we were implementing no PO, no pay policies and enforcing everyone to perform goods receipts. And we quickly found that was a bit of a challenge, especially in some of our stores. So we started using Precisely Automate to help automate those tasks at our stores to kind of say, hey, we need to be able to kind of keep things flowing and keep things moving. And so we started there. Once we saw the value in that, it really kind of spread to a lot of other areas to say, hey, how can we use these? We've brought it out into our P2P and fixed asset space. It's just grown over the years. So we have 171 scripts that are run periodically over about 50 transactions. We have 2,335 stores as of year end, ultimately 152 billion in sales. So primarily all of our sites used within the finance and P2P space. So a lot of it in the expense payables area, which is, I believe, well over $2 billion in kind of annual expenses across different sides. So
Precisely Automate has given a lot of time back to the end business users, allowing them to execute the scripts and run thousands of transactions all in the background. So it's allowed them to shift their focus onto other activities while Precisely Automate is running.
with our P2P space, we've processed over 1.6 million transactions last year. And I believe it was around 1.2 million in fixed asset transactions. So we have lots of data at Home Depot. So being able to or lots of transactions that have to get entered, and having to do those individually as SAP kind of wants you to do is just not possible for us.
So yeah, imagine having to deal with that much complexity in that large an organization. And now let's talk about what happens when you have those complex product processes. Pactive is a really great example of that. Pactive is a packaging company that had a struggle in terms of the amount of time it took to create a new package for something like a sporting event, where if you're going to take a month, but your sporting event happens in 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to make it. So they're going to tell you a really great story about how they have used First Foundation and now Evolve to drive a lot of productivity into their organization and cut their time fundamentally to meet their business needs.
My name is Laura Meyer. I am the Director of IT, Supply Chain and Procurement at Pacitive Evergreen. We were loading data manually, which is a very arduous process. We were always looking for a better way. They've tried a few tools that did not go as well as it could have. During our migrations, a lot of mergers, acquisitions, we bring companies onto our platforms quite often, and with the masses of data that has to be loaded, there's no way. We'd have to have an army of people to load the material masters, the bills of materials, the routings. It has taken a process that would have taken months before, and we can do things in one day. When Foundation came about, we had the ability to build forms for our business processes, and we have a new product development that needed a workflow. We collect data from different people. So now it goes right from material master, collects the bills of materials, the routings, costs the material, and then it's live in the system. And of course, we're only limited by the workflow users the milestones so if they can have something done in one day if everybody's prepared. We've taken a process that used to take months and now it's down to 2 weeks. Now we've moved into the Evolve platform, much more user-friendly. Everything's in one place. I love it. Personally, I think it's very easy to navigate. I literally took 15 minutes to train the users on navigation. In the future, our roadmap is going to S4, Evolve at that point, or Automate. We'll be part of that journey. Hopefully it will help us to load the data from one system to the other, do the migrations. I want to streamline for the users even more, make it more predictive. You start entering data, it starts populating. I want to see this go down to, I have a new product on the floor in a day, if not sooner.
So as you can see, you can gain a lot of advantage by automating some of these complex data intensive processes. And we've seen this in other areas. One of the big areas that people often struggle with is customer master data. We've got a customer, it's one of the largest companies in the world. They've got well over 1 million customers. And traditionally to create a customer for them, it took them about 144 hours. So it took them about 3 weeks. And when they automated that process using Evolve, they cut it to about 6 hours. So they cut their time to create a new customer from 3 weeks to less than a day. They've got over 1 million customers. So you can imagine what this means to be able to cut that much time out of how long it takes you to create or manage customer data. Another good example is a company that is a custom metals manufacturer. They do a lot of custom alloys for the aerospace and medical industry. And traditionally to create a new or to onboard a new vendor took about 2.5 years. So imagine what their customer conversation was like. It's 2025 right now, and somebody calls up and says, I need this alloy. And they're like, well, I've got to find a vendor for that. Call me back in 2027. That's what it was like before. Now they do it in about 3 months. So imagine what their customer conversation is like. Imagine what their customer experience is like. It's not wait 2.5 years. It's call me back next quarter. This is the power of automation and what it can do for you and for your customers in terms of improving that overall experience. And finally, this is the last customer we're going to talk to, South Florida Water Management District. And they do a lot of things with Automate. And so I want you to hear that whole story. But one of the most interesting ones for me personally, when I first heard this, was how they use Automate as a knowledge transfer tool for when they've got employees who are getting ready to retire and they need to onboard new employees into these processes. To me, it's absolutely fascinating, and I hope you find it that way too.
Well, I'm Rich Sands, and I work for the South Florida Water Management District. So for the past 3.5 years, I've been running SAP for the Water District. We use Precisely on a daily basis to handle the large database uploads into our SAP system. In particular, we've got a procurement group that has a massive vendor database, and they are constantly using Precisely in order to upgrade and maintain that database, bringing in new vendors as well as expelling vendors who are no longer working with us and maintaining integrity of the data. At the district, we do have the challenge of workforce overturn. The majority of our employees are older and retiring, and then we have younger, newer workforce coming in. But we specifically use Precisely to set them down the week prior before they leave. They sit at the keyboard and they actually go through their typical week of how they work in SAP to do their job. And then we use scripting to capture their knowledge. And then we use those scripts with the new employees so that their work life is easier as they start. Precisely has made it easier. Having these scripts available, a new employee or a new contractor can come in and they're given a smorgasbord of selection of scripts. And when they run them, they realize that there's already a set way to do the process. And they just have to study the scripts and the outcome. And it's made it all much easier to start doing your job from day one and then get better at it. And Precisely has been a big time saver for us. Specifically, every year we have 16 counties that we maintain civil engineering type structures, pumps, canals, levees that all need constant daily maintenance. And we handle all this operations with SAP Plant Maintenance. In the past, it would take us 3 months to manually create that. And now using scripting from Precisely, we're able to do it in about 3 to 4 days. For the next 4 years, the primary goals of the water district is to use software and AI type capabilities in order to allow a limited number of employees to handle more workload, and to have tools handle the grunt work so that the employees can focus more on the precision type work.
All right, so hopefully all of these customer stories have given you something to think about in terms of what automation can do for you and how it can help you improve your SAP processes and improve those complex data intensive processes that we all struggle so much with. But hopefully it has also helped you get a better sense from, I'm going to be perfectly self-serving in this, how Precisely can help you do this. I think we have a really great solution, especially for those SAP teams that are looking for a way to be more productive. Now, we can do this both in SEC and S/4HANA, and we can help you through that journey if you're looking to go from one to the other and you want to maintain some continuity in your automation solutions. So we are happy to help you with that. I'm going to leave you with a couple of things to think about. When we talk about streamlining SAP processes, one of the biggest ones, and I think you heard this, is around simplification. How do you simplify these complex processes for your business users for a way that can help drive efficiency and productivity into your teams? You've also seen how automation can give you greater agility. You heard it from Pactive. They cut their time fundamentally down in a way that really has improved how agile they can be in their business overall. And we've got lots of other examples of that. And then ROI. We've seen and you've heard companies talking about measurable ROI. And that's something that is always very important for all of us. How much is this going to save me? How much value am I going to be able to derive from it? So overall, I think it's a really great way to think about automation in these three areas. We're going to simplify those processes. We're going to give you greater agility, and we're going to be able to help you show that you're delivering value back to your organization. And finally, I'm just going to leave you with this one thought. And this is a quote from Justin Trudeau, and he said it a few years ago, but I don't think it's ever been more true than it is today. And he said, the pace of change has never been this fast, but it will never be this slow again. And don't think about it too hard, because it's terrifying if you just think about it. But we talked about this speed at which businesses are accelerating. We're gathering information more quickly. We're creating data faster. Our teams are we've reached the point where we can no longer just throw human bodies at the problem. We can't just add 7, 8, 10 people in a shared service center somewhere and hope that that's going to fix it, because it's not. And realizing that this is the slowest they will ever be in the future. Automation is a great way to really address this pace of change. Again, the pace of change, it's never been this fast, but it will never be this slow again. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you want more information, please go to precisely.com. You can learn a lot more about how not only the Precisely Automate products can help you for SAP process automation, but also how the rest of the SAP or the rest of the Precisely portfolio, can help you with your overall data integrity, how we can help you with cleaning your data, with enriching that data, with governing that data, how we can help you with your master data management in other areas and integration with other systems. There's a lot of things Precisely can do to help you and your organization really improve your overall business and drive a lot of value and efficiency throughout it. And with that, I want to thank everybody for being here. I know your time is valuable, and I very, very much appreciate that you have chosen to spend it with us. And I hope everyone has a happy and healthy day. Thank you very much. Bye.